What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Release 8 podcast. This is Beau again and Linson Daniel. And we are in the middle of a series on ministry in a season of decline and just the role of the A.P.E callings, apostolic, prophetic, evangelistic. Today, we're going to get into the evangelistic. And Linson and I are really excited about this one. This is an area of our strength in our calling. So we feel like we have a lot to talk through with this and tensions to highlight. When I think about ministry in a season of decline, which we've talked about in our previous episodes, is really happening across the church right now in all senses. People are struggling, people's attendance are down. Even if it's not an attendance reality, just how do I connect with people well? What's going on with this new generation? Cultural and racial and ethnic realities are strong, and we're having to navigate those in different ways for some of us. And it's like, okay, this is tough. This feels like a decline. And so when we think about the role of the evangelist, what's their role in a season of decline? And what we think is their role is to actually get out there and start talking with people, get out there and know the people on the outside of the church. We've said this a lot with regards to the evangelistic office. It's kind of the linchpin of the callings. The evangelist has 1 foot in the church and 1 foot out. They need to know and be fluent in church language and culture, but they need to be fluent in the outside culture too, so that they can bring those two together. And I think in a season like we're in right now, the evangelist needs to get out there and be amongst the people and talking with the people and learning what they're thinking and learning what their hangups are and learning where the church is powerful and where the church is kind of lame and where we're missing it and where we're strong, and being able to see like, okay, here are some powerful connections that we can bring to the world to help them know who Jesus is. Or here's some things where our church is completely missing it. And if we really want to help lost people get saved, we need to do things differently because we are completely missing them. So let me illustrate it by this way. You all know I'm in the campus ministry, and I've been on campus a lot the last month. It's the beginning of a new semester, and just trying to talk to as many people as I can. I'm putting this into practice myself. And last week, I was on campus with some of our student leaders, one of my volunteer staff, and we just spent hours talking and hanging out with people on campus, in the student union, around the couches, over meals. And we got into some incredible conversations with people that said a couple things. One, I don't want to come to a Bible study thing because Jesus is restrictive. That's what they said. And when we got into that, it was all the normal stuff about partying and sex and things like that. And we were able to get right into that and talk about, all those things that come with apologetics around lifestyle. But the other thing that came up was the idea of Jesus as a white man's religion. And I was with all Black students. Our leaders are Black. The people we were talking to are Black. And they just had a lot of anger towards white people in their heart. And we built enough trust over the time that they were able to bring that out and be honest. And it ended up becoming an incredible conversation with all of us about the racial tensions, about why Jesus would be good news for them, about what's the deal with me as a white person? Am I safe or not? It ended great. We built a lot of trust. I'm not going to get you into the details of how that is. Maybe that's another episode. How do we talk about those things? My point is, if I'm not out talking with those people, I'm not realizing, people really think Jesus is lame or restrictive right now. Or, wow, people are really worried about how the church is coming across as a white man's religion or a white organization. And what does it mean to reach people across culture? There's other things that are going on. But what we want to talk about in this episode is, if we're going to be evangelists that get out and talk to people and influence them towards Jesus and learn what's going on, there's incredible temptations that come with doing that we're going to face immediately. And we're going to get into a couple of those temptations right now. So watch to the end, because you're going to face pushback as you start talking that's going to make you feel like you want to shut down. So Linson, that was a lot for me to open. Why don't you get us into some of these temptations? Okay, Beau. Okay, Linson, I'm going to get out. I'm going to start talking to people. I'm going to be the evangelist that my church or my community needs me to be. What are some of these temptations that we're going to hit right away in a season of decline when we're trying to push the gospel forward?
Yeah, thanks for setting that up, Bo. Man, I love your stories, bro. I feel like you're always you're so bold and evangelistic, but you do it with great gentleness and trust for people. And I just love how cross-cultural and tricky that was, but you're in the mix. And I think when I hear your story and I think about my own life and just the decline that we've been in, and whether that's overlaid through racial, political, pandemic, it's all there, right? So it's all kind of contributing to the decline that we're seeing. I think there are two temptations for an evangelist. When I hear, especially when I hear your story, because I long to have more of those moments in my life. There's probably more, Bo. I mean, there might be three or four, but the two that come to mind quickly are, I don't know if deep down inside, when we're going through decline, if we believe the gospel anymore. Like, do we believe the good news anymore?
Hmm.
And then probably a close cousin to that is, are we even excited about it anymore? So let's go back to the belief part. Like, I typically talk to people about things that like, if I don't believe in something, I mean, you're not gonna really catch me talking about it. In fact, I might argue with people that bring it up. I have no sense of like wanting to talk to people about it. And then I also have a fear that if I don't really believe in it, and I kind of go out and with a hollow framework to a friend, maybe from a Hindu background or a Muslim background or just nominal, that they're going to say something and my kind of house of cards is going to fall apart, right? Because I actually don't believe it. If someone were to poke, at it, I don't believe it, or I don't believe in its power for that person's situation. Like, I know that they're going through a tough time, and I feel like if I share the gospel with them, I don't actually know or believe that God could break through in the difficult situation they're in. So there's a belief on my behalf or a belief on their behalf that I think becomes a temptation. I know that might not be where people thought we were going with this, but I do think that's a huge temptation, a block for us. And then next to that is, let's say you do believe in it. Are you excited about it again? Like, does it feel like you remember your first love? There's a sense of, yeah, I know things are bad, but I mean, Jesus is still so good, so worthy, so life changing and transformative. There's an excitement built around it that I think most in the church, and I'm talking as a pastor, Bo, and you can see students, I would say there are a lot of Christians who are just not excited about the gospel anymore. I don't know if they feel like they've graduated out of it or they feel like it has no bearing on a society and a church in decline. There's no excitement around bringing Jesus to that party that's in decline, that Jesus could turn the party around. I don't think there's an excitement that around that. Does that make sense? What do you think about that?
Yeah. As I'm hearing you talk about that, the two temptations of an evangelist in this season, like, one, am I excited? Am I a contagious
Oh,
Christian right
contagious.
now? And the other one being like, do I really believe it's good news? I believe Jesus is good news. It makes me think about a couple things. So, like, one, on the excited or being contagious, excited about Jesus, which makes me contagious.
Right.
Over the last year, I've been on a little bit of a weight loss journey and have gotten healthier myself. I've been able to help some other people lose some significant weight and get healthier. What's been interesting about it is people notice that if you do it well, and they're
Yeah.
like, "What are you doing? Like, I need
Yeah.
that." Like, you wouldn't believe the amount of calls or Facebook messages or Instagram messages I get of like, "Hey, can you help me? Like, I'm out of control with my health or eating, and I need you to help me get on track."
Mm,
Okay, that is like exactly paralleling what we'd hope to see in the faith. Like, oh
mm,
my gosh, what's going on in your life? I love what I'm seeing. I love the light. I love the transformation. I love how spiritually in shape you're becoming or getting. Like, can you help me?
mhm,
My life's off the rails spiritually. I need your help. Can you show me
mm,
what to do? Now I'm the evangelist. I'm being the evangelist just because I'm excited. I'm experiencing it. I'm a champion for the way the gospel is. And I feel like we are super dim right now. Like our light is dim, our energy is dim in the church. So I sense that in my own self. Like the motivation is just low in faith. And I don't know if that's because we're so like drossed up with religiosity or
Mm,
institution or results or achievement. That's like when a season of decline comes,
mm.
it's like, oh, our faith is declining when it should really have nothing to do with that.
Wow,
But
that's
we
good.
need we need people to rise up right now and be like excited about God and like the transformation he brings and the joy he brings and the hope he brings. I'm not seeing that right now. That there's a temptation for us in the evangelistic side to just be dim or to just be low key or to be mellow or maybe not to be excited in this time because it looks obnoxious because people are having a hard time. I don't know what it is, but
Mm,
I'm not seeing a lot of contagion. So I hear you when you say it. That's where my mind goes on the do I really believe it's good news? Yeah, I think with the trouble we've seen in our world and specifically in our country the last couple of years, politically, health wise with the vaccine, which has also gotten political. I mean, COVID and the vaccine, which has gotten
mhm,
political. The racial realities, um, the way the church has gotten slammed, in some ways rightfully so too, with being, you know, white or
mhm,
whitewashed or colonialism or um,
mhm,
so many things that are going on. I think a lot of us, the temptation is like, I just don't know how to communicate Jesus as good news to the people
mm,
around me that are like, if you think about the average person you're around that doesn't know Jesus, first of all, if you don't have friends that aren't Christian, you need to get some. You need to go
mhm,
hang out and be in a different environment. But when you hang out with people that truly are not following Jesus or don't care about it, they tend to be fired up about things like sexuality, politics, the health realities, racial realities, maybe economics. Like there's some pretty heated things about why they're not excited about God or the church. And I think right now the average person does not know how to talk about that. Like, how is Jesus good news to you? I don't know. I know he's good news. I know him. I love him. He's my father in heaven. He's my family. Like, we're cool. I totally get why you wouldn't want to be in my family. And so I'm just not going to talk about it. I think that's the hidden temptation. It's
mhm.
like, I like my family. I totally get why you think my family's crazy. So like, I'm not going to try to convince you to be in my family. Right there, that is a temptation because it's like, I don't know how to talk about the good news. So I'm going to resign to it. We
Mm.
can't do that. We have to figure out how to talk about the good news and convince people to be in our family because we have the most awesome father in the world.
Yeah, and I love that. I mean, so like even hearing you talk, you embody a sense of deep belief in the gospel and excitement about it. I think that's that. Like even hearing you talk, I feel that energy. And so one practice maybe, or maybe we can talk a little bit about like what did we used to do when it wasn't in decline. I feel like a lot of us, now, especially being a pastor, I feel like people were not really excited. Forgive me for saying this. I don't know if people were really excited about the gospel or they were excited about what their church was doing,
Mm,
or they weren't really excited, or they knew that church is kind of central to their worldview. So if I could just get my lost neighbor to my church, I mean, everything's done. So maybe deep down inside, the pandemic or decline has crumbled the institution of the church. And so we don't have a really cool preaching series, or we don't really have this cool program anymore. And that's what you were so excited about to get your neighbor to, but that crumbled. And so now you're like, oh, I'm not really excited about church. I don't really go either. But what were we excited about? If it was really the life-changing message and person of Jesus Christ, that actually hasn't gone away. In fact, it might be even more key when things are falling apart everywhere, right? But
mm,
because the church fell apart with everything else, man, you said it earlier when you were talking, like because our metrics, because our ministries, because everything was all in decline, did that mean our faith went into decline too? Our faith doesn't rest on those things. So maybe in a lot of ways we're critiquing that part of who we are. Were we evangelists? Man, were we evangelists for the gospel of Jesus Christ, or we were just evangelists for the cool new thing our church was doing? Or, and I think that's probably exposing some realities. I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, there's so much to say. I think we're gonna need a couple episodes on this, and probably because we're just dialed into evangelism. I mean, it's our
Yeah.
strength. My mind is going in so many directions, so I hope I can say it's clear. I guess if not, that's why we can have more episodes.
Yeah.
One thought is back to the idea of being contagious, that's connecting with like the church unraveling thing. I think because people are becoming more aware of how the church in a big sense has hurt people, like church trauma,
Mm.
or unhealthy spirituality has been
So
hurtful to
true.
people.
So true.
The average Christian is like, I don't know how to talk about Jesus in a compelling way because I'm not sure he's good for everyone. And again, I
Man.
keep equating it to the diet thing. It's like, I know this is working for me the way I'm eating, but when you hear someone else talk about like, I don't like that, or that upset my stomach, or, whatever isn't working for me, you're like, well, I don't want to keep trying to convince them. And of course, we believe Jesus is good for everyone. He's the best spiritual thing for everyone. Like he is the Lord. Like we need to know him. But I think if you use that analogy or metaphor, a lot of people are feeling like, I just don't know if this is good for them. And I've seen them get hurt and I don't want to push it when they've been hurt. So part of me is thinking we need to be able to know how to talk about church trauma well. A temptation right now is to just act like everything's fine. Let's just keep talking about Jesus. And we need to be able to address pain, whether it's church trauma, whether it's the idea of Jesus as a white man's religion. We need to address these things head on and sensitively and go, no, 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 no. Like,
Mm-hmm.
yes, I hear you. Thank you for talking to me. I hear you. I see it. I can validate it. But let me tell you why that's not true. We need to know how to do that. I think the other thing I'm hearing you when you're talking is COVID season has put a huge dent in institutional religion. We're not attending church as much. We're used to watching online now. We're used to seeing many people have stopped going to church. Even now, if they can go back, they'll just rather watch online. So to your point, what's really intriguing is if our evangelism in the past had been, let me just invite you to church, and then church does the rest or
Right.
woos them or wins them. If we can't invite people to church anymore, either A, because we're not going, or B, they don't care to go, or they don't even see the point anymore, what do we talk about? Like, we don't know how to talk about Jesus. I don't know how to tell this person in their living room why Jesus is good news. Like, I need my church service or my pastor or my program. So I think what it's highlighting is just we're super anemic in articulation of the good news. We're underdeveloped. We're deficient with our passion, our language. We're paralyzed by the issues of the day coming up, and it's like the last thing any of us want to do while we're tired and coming out of a tough couple years is to get in conversations about Jesus and race, or Jesus and politics, or Jesus and sexuality, or Jesus and health mandates. It's like, oh my God, keep me as far away as possible from that. But guess what? That's what the evangelists got to talk about today.
Right. Yeah. I mean, so, and I love what you said. The way you talk about that was the church, like, kind of unraveling has done two things. One, it's given us it's exposed our how we're anemic. I love that. It has exposed that. But the other thing it has done, it has allowed us to separate our life in Christ from the institution. So
Well said.
when our friend is in our living room and they're talking about church hurt, we can actually explain Jesus outside of the institution because they're in our living room. And what if for the first time they can hear Jesus outside of the stained glass, outside of the, I don't know, LED wall and the cool pastor and all that? They can finally just be like, yo, this is my friend that I grill burgers with. This is my sister that I love, talking shop with, or talking about our families with, or or talking business with. Like, this is that person. We watch the stock market together, but then while we're hanging out, like, they're telling me about their faith. And it's these like everyday, very rich moments that
Yeah, but
Jesus from
let,
the
let, let me cut in on that because you're highlighting a really powerful point. In order to be able to talk about Jesus outside the stained windows, as you put it, you have to have a relation with Jesus outside the church.
there.
You have to have a passion for Jesus outside the church. Like, how many people do we know that are Christian? Their faith is dependent on going to church programs. What does their personal relation with God look like as far as reading scripture, praying, seeking him, spending time with him, loving him, knowing him, being passionate about him because of the relationship? And again, I don't want to set up an unhealthy dichotomy. We need gatherings. We need the
Yeah,
body of Christ.
100%.
We need all
Yes.
that. I'm not an
Yes.
anti-church guy.
Yeah.
But if our faith isn't vibrant outside of programs and regular gatherings, we don't have much to talk about. We aren't
Yeah.
compelling.
Yeah. And that, what if in a weird way, that's the invitation in decline, is to realize, wait a second, the trappings of my church is not my faith. My faith is different from that. My faith gets re-energized in that space, but my faith goes with me. It doesn't get locked in. I don't drop it off at church, like a preschooler, and then I pick it up next Sunday and I play with it or whatever. There's that is the invitation in decline for each of us to be like, my faith is separate from my church attendance and my church programs. And then that is also the invitation for your friend to
Get
see, like,
passionate about Jesus.
yeah, that like when we talked about finance, it was crazy to be like, I didn't realize you guys gave so much away. Why do you do that? Oh, you just have a small little curious platform for the person of Jesus. That's it. I mean, you don't even have to give a full gospel message, but your friend's going to be back next week flipping burgers with you, wanting to ask, hey, how'd the stocks do for you this week? And then, hey, what did you give away? What were you giving away last week? Those
Right.
little vistas have nothing to do with the local church per se. And again, we're not putting it down. I'm a pastor. I would never put down a local church. But I wonder if there's an invitation there, bro, to believe again, anew, to be excited again in a fresh way. And Jesus is inviting us when it all starts declining. Like, what if there's a new way?
Yeah. I think you're right. The invitation is towards personal revival
Mm-hmm.
and pressing in and falling in love with Jesus again and learning how to be excited and full of joy, and then how to articulate that. And I think for those that's the regular person, I think, that wants to just learn how to be evangelist again. I think for those of you that are evangelists that are like trying to win the world back right now, I think a couple things I would say as we're talking is, one, stop ignoring the real issues.
Yeah,
We
go
are
right at it.
tired of just the trite Christian answers, or let me just share the gospel with you, or the Romans road, or just a lot of people today need to talk about the real issues that are going on with race, with sexuality, with the politics. Like, do you have to be a Republican to follow Jesus? Like, do I have to go to a white evangelical church to follow Jesus? Like, um, we have to know how to talk about these things. And so I think a powerful evangelist invitation I would give for you today is learn how to talk about these things well, learn how to articulate Jesus in a winsome way in those areas. Stop ignoring those issues, or
Mm,
stop using those issues as a platform for your faith, even worse.
mm-hmm.
So I feel that too. For those listening, we're missing a authentic power in our evangelism right now. Like, we're almost trying to
Yeah,
shout louder than the culture,
yeah,
instead of like,
yeah,
let me talk with you, culture, and show you why Jesus is so awesome. But like,
yeah.
peer to peer, shoulder to shoulder. But
Right.
that's your point. It takes a vibrancy and a
Mm-hmm.
knowing of Jesus in a way that makes you secure and comfortable enough to go do that.
Mm-hmm.
Give
Yeah,
us
and
a final word.
yeah, my final word for today, we should probably talk about this again, maybe next week. So I would say, yeah, I mean, as a step to reignite your love for the gospel is probably twofold. One, personal revival, like get back to why you love Jesus again, and then get back outside again. Like go talk to people again,
Yes.
because you'll be surprised the stuff people want to talk to you about, and as you get to learn and see what people want to talk about, you're going to be surprised that Jesus is somewhere in the intersection of all that. Like he's going to point to you and show you this is where I'm here in their life. So, but you won't know that unless you talk and get to know people. And again, a lot of times evangelism can feel like a short game, but sometimes it's a long game. Getting to know your neighbors for the long run, and God will present Himself. But you got to go meet your neighbor, and you got to love Jesus. And you don't have to do either of those things necessarily in the institution of church. So it's okay that things are in decline.
It's great, man. All right. We'll get back at this again. Thanks for listening. Thanks for sharing. Again, if you have any comments, questions, you can always email us at info@releaseape.com or leave a comment on YouTube. And thank you, Linson, for your insight. I hope this inspired y'all to think more about evangelism in today's climate, what the evangelist needs to look like, that some of the temptations we're facing. And we look forward to talking with you again next week. Have a good day.
Yeah. Peace.